After I decided on a basic layout for my office, how big I wanted it to be, the first thing I did was lay out where the foundation holes should be with wooden stakes and string. After that, I rented an auger and augered out the holes. You might be wondering why you're not seeing that in the video, and I'll tell you why. That's because my tripod hadn't arrived yet, and I was eager to get started. So here we are. Unfortunately, the auger bit was not quite big enough for the piers that I was going to be using, so I had to widen the holes and make some of them a little bit deeper with the use of post hole diggers. I dug the holes for my foundation piers 24 inches deep. The frost line where I live is 12 inches. This allowed me to put down a 6-inch layer of gravel and then start the concrete 6 inches below the frost line. So if you're doing this on your own, don't necessarily go 24 inches. Look up the frost line in your area. It may be much deeper if you live somewhere colder than I live. It's just important that you start your concrete below the frost line. If you don't, the ground freezes, it can heave your foundation, and that sounds like it's less than ideal. After I finished digging the holes, I put these concrete tubes down in the holes and marked where I wanted them to be cut off. The way I measured this is I read somewhere that I needed to have at least 9 inches of clearance, so I went to the highest spot in the yard, measured 9 inches up from the ground, made my marks there, and then I used a string level to measure across and level everything to that one corner. In retrospect, it would have been a lot easier if I had done that with a laser level. Once I got the tubes in the ground, it became obvious that my measurements were not perfect. That wasn't such a big deal though, as I can either take extra dirt out of a hole or add a little bit of extra gravel into a hole to make up the difference in height. And I did have to do that. I checked multiple times that these piers were level with each other and added extra gravel as needed. And once I was satisfied that they were level, I would place my 4-foot level across the top and then start packing gravel and sand around them to hold them in place and to allow for better drainage. Between adjacent piers on different rows, there's approximately 5 feet from center to center. And between adjacent piers on the same row, there's approximately 6 feet 8 inches. I got those numbers by consulting span charts in my local building codes. I knew I was going to be using southern yellow pine 2x8s for my floor joist system, so I made sure I didn't go over the allotted span. I probably went a little overkill by making this many piers and having them this close together for that kind of floor system. But I wanted to make sure I had a really stable floor. Since this was my first time ever doing concrete work, I tried to follow the instructions on the bags exactly, which is why you can see me pouring precisely measured amounts of water into the concrete to mix in. I found that this gave the concrete the consistency of a wet pile of rocks, so I then started to think of concrete mixing more as an art than a science. What you see me doing here with the rebar and then also tapping the side of the concrete form, is an important part of concrete work because it helps to remove the voids that may be in the concrete. As you can see, the top level of the concrete is going down as I'm doing this, removing all the voids inside. I did 4 of these piers by hand and started to seriously question my intelligence. It's a lot harder than it looks. Tons of respect for those of you who work in concrete every day. If you're like me and you're doing a project like this and you have anything more than a trivial amount of concrete to do, just go ahead and rent a concrete mixer. It costs less than back surgery and physical therapy. I used a fiberglass rebar product called Pink Bar to reinforce the concrete. From my research, it looked like it should add more tensile strength to the concrete than your standard steel rebar, which I'm sure steel would have been fine for my project, but there's no kill quite like overkill. Remember to fill the voids in your concrete. You can tell by how much the level of the concrete is dropping as I do this, how much it's settling down and filling those voids in. This will make for a stronger foundation. If you found anything here helpful, or you were just amused watching me make mistakes, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be putting out a video like this for every step of the process, explaining what I did and why I did it that way. So hit that subscribe button and I'll see you next time.